This is an example of the Daily Doodle sheet, as well as how to tie two cartoons together by putting them next to each other. The word for that is juxtaposition. So two things that are next to each other are juxtaposed. Big word for basically two cartoons that are sitting next to each other. As we continue to draw the daily doodles, keep in mind that if necessary, when the animals are a little bit wider than they are tall, you can either rotate the page sideways like this, or you can draw them just a little bit bigger so that instead of taking up one rectangle, in this case, these two cartoons sitting next to each other take up two. Now, juxtaposition. Anytime you see two characters in a cartoon next to each other, they are juxtaposed. You can tell that the dog is saying something to the cat because his mouth is open. You can also see that he's got a cup in his hand and he's holding a piece of string. The other thing that ties these two cartoons together is I used the side of my pencil to shade in around those two characters. This was a completely different cartoon in a different style from a different artist. This cartoon was drawn originally, I got it out of a book, by a cartoonist named Randy Glassbergen. Randy Glassbergen was a very prolific cartoonist, which means he drew tons and tons and tons of cartoons. He drew cartoons his whole life, and I think he actually never had an actual full-time job working for anyone else. He started drawing cartoons when he was in high school and got paid for his first cartoon, when he was in high school, and basically worked for himself drawing cartoons in his home for his entire life. He was syndicated for a while. He took over another cartoon strip from another cartoonist that died and drew that strip for quite a while. In any event, what I want to talk about with juxtaposition and your daily doodle sheet, first of all, think about adding some shade around your cartoons. The examples that we post don't always have shading around it, but you'll notice the shading on this cartoon is slightly different than this one. And so this one is a completely different cartoon. We're just using up as much of the space on this page as possible. And all this page consists of is we folded it over twice this way, then we unfolded it and folded it over twice this way to end up with 16 rectangles so that we can do 16 cartoons if there's room. Since these two took up 3 spaces, obviously this is going to have less quantity of cartoons on it. So this is what your daily doodle sheet should look like. Keep in mind, every day, there's going to be a number on the cartoon, and there's going to be a date inside the rectangle that you draw the cartoon, if it fits. Since this first cartoon actually goes into the second panel here, or the second rectangle, and even the second one kind of goes into the third rectangle, I want you to put the number, because these are sequential, meaning they go 1, 2, 3, 4, and also the date that it was assigned or the date that it was posted, just in case you run into a situation like this where after cartoon number 6, 7 took up 2 spaces, 8 took up 2 spaces, or I should say a space and a half. And then, as I mentioned, 10 and 11 were also sideways. Now, here's where the juxtaposition comes into play when you're thinking about the possibility of what could the dog be talking to the cat about. I left out one minor detail when I first drew this, and the minor detail was I forgot that he was holding this piece of string. So in the original cartoon, it looked to me like the dog was just pointing at the cat, and the cat was looking up at the dog and listening to whatever the dog had to say. But I went and found the cartoon. I had to draw the string in there because the string is actually a piece of dental floss. And I don't remember what the caption was, but I can look that up later and post it somewhere. Since these two were side by side, and most of the cartoons in the book have two characters in it, I just found a random character and put it in there for the third Daily Doodle, which was on 8/13. This one comes from a website called Monsters Under My Bed, and there are 62 of these, so we'll be drawing quite a few of these fairly simple cartoons. And I want to keep all of the cartoons fairly simple. You'll notice also on this, there's a lot of scratches and scribbles on these. I'm teaching the process of deconstructing the cartoons by checking out the basic shapes. So this bird started off with an upside down bell shape for the body, a circle for the head, a circle for the eyes, 2 half circles for the feet, and 2 rectangles for the legs. I want you to get in the habit of drawing and not erasing those construction lines. So you can see the cheek on this bird, the construction lines for the head, some of the construction lines for the body. I want you to leave all of that stuff on there so that I can see that you're understanding the process of how to draw something using basic shapes. And future cartoons, I'm going to go through all of these and demonstrate that process of constructing the cartoon. Whenever you see a cartoon like this, I want you to think, okay, well, that looks like a rectangle, although it's rounded. The head looks like a rectangle. The snout or the nose on the bull is kind of oval shaped. And then again, the eye is round. The ear is kind of rectangular or almost triangle shaped. The ears on the pig are triangle shaped, but they're curved slightly. So every time we draw one of these, we want to draw them using those basic shapes. The process of noticing the basic shapes first, drawing the basic shapes, is called deconstructing. So we're deconstructing the pieces based on what it looks like. And then when we draw the shapes, we're constructing it or reconstructing it. When you think of construction, most of the time you think of buildings. But you can see on the cow, for instance, I wanted to get the udder right. So I did a big circle like this, even though only part of the udder is sticking down here. When I drew the legs, I drew rectangles. And then half circles for the feet, for the hooves. And then after the fact, with these lines drawn very lightly, mostly lightly, then you can go over looking at the original cartoon and draw the completed lines or the finished lines. And add those details by applying just a little more pressure to darken in those lines. And I have instructed my students to not erase anything. This pencil doesn't have an eraser because one of the kids broke it off, probably threw it across the room. But that's okay for our purposes because I don't want them to erase anyway, because I want to see how they constructed their cartoons. The pig and the cow should have been standing on the same ground. The addition of grass around it makes it look like the cow might be standing in a ditch. Again, this is just a practice sheet, but I do want to see the construction lines. And if you think about why I want to see the construction lines, it's very simple. And that is, I want, just like a math teacher that wants you to show your work, I want to be able to see that you constructed this rather than just tried to draw it from scratch. So that's a description of the entire process. This is used as a warm-up, and the more that you learn how to construct a cartoon, the quicker you'll be able to draw it, rather than trying to go line by line and figure out, looking back and forth at the original drawing and just doing line by line and shape by shape. If you construct it, you can see, for instance, that this dog is mostly triangular shaped. It's rounded, but it's still, there could have been a point here. The head is oval shaped, the nose is oval shaped, the eye is round, the ears kind of banana shaped, still starts with an oval. So that when you break these down or deconstruct them and then reconstruct them, you should be able to learn how to draw these things very quickly, so that it only takes maybe 5 or 6 minutes to draw a cartoon as an exercise to our daily doodle process.